Hi, Team Flyer. How are you? Here we are, another beautiful Wednesday. Welcome to the Always Ruler podcast. You know that I'm Ariadna, your beautiful host here and presenter and everything, creator behind the scenes of this beautiful community called Team Flyer. And for our Go to Fly story, we have this beautiful woman that I have in front of me, even though through the screen, obviously, Ramona Robles. Ramona Robles in Spanish. With more of my, Latin American / Spanish accent. And without further ado, I'm just going to just say hello to her and let her introduce herself. Hi, Ramona.
Hi. Nice to be here.
How are you, darling?
I'm well, thank you.
All right. So tell us a little bit about you do. We're going to dive in a little bit later, more, but tell us what you do.
So I work in learning and development, people operations, HR, in the tech industry here in New York.
Perfect. All right. So what you said, New York is where you are now, a place that you thought you would never be before.
That's right.
And we're going to exactly head and dive in directly into that because that's part of your Go-To-Fly story, what you shared with me when we exchanged emails, and your story is also in today's blog post. So you can have it, people can read it, people can listen to it. Here we are. So let's go all the way back to where you were, which is what's it called? San Bernardino?
San Bernardino.
Bernardino? I'm like, I'm just going to say it in Spanish, all right? California. I mean,
yeah.
California, but yeah. So let's go back to originally. Were you originally from there, or did you grow up there?
Yes, San Bernardino, born and raised. Both my parents met there, were married there. I was baptized in the same church they were married in.
Oh.
So huge foundation in San Bernardino, California.
Yay. Oh, I can't wait to visit California. I've always been on the East Coast.
Oh, okay.
In general, but the West Coast, something that I've always had a huge connection with. And not only California, because I feel like it's super pretty, but also Washington and Oregon, and just
absolutely.
I'm I want to go explore over there. So tell us a little bit about that, about your backstory, where you're from, like you said, and your story, like we said earlier, also mentions your mom and dad.
Yeah. So my backstory, it starts in San Bernardino, where my parents met and raised our family. I'm one of 5 and the oldest. So not to fit any kind of stereotype, but I am, I do like to be reliable. I do like to look out for my sisters. I'm one of 5 sisters.
Oh, wow.
And so I think that's always shaped me for the better. And I'm so grateful for having had that experience. It's my favorite thing. I love to be the oldest, and the oldest sister, so that I can guide them, help them, get them through everything.
And we're a big family as well. I mean, you have 4 younger sisters. It's a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take care of them.
I don't know any other way.
Exactly.
It's an interesting dynamic to move from that to where I am now. But yeah, so I am first generation that on one side graduated high school, on the other graduated college. Sorry.
No worries.
I thought I turned that off. Okay.
It happens to the best of us.
It's my husband's computer.
Oh, there it is. There we go.
So he's in trouble.
He's the one in trouble then.
But so I'm first generation. So there was a lot of figuring things out. And I think that what worked for me is that I'm the oldest. And so there was always a lot of figuring things out. And so it was definitely I feel like that's also shaped me for the better in that, in that having to learn it made me that much more appreciative of it. And so college experience was great. I always worked a lot. But I was so grateful to always be close to home. My parents were only about 15, 20 minutes away. I graduated
You say that
from,
with the hugest smile on your face. That's so
yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, I was only about 15, 20 minutes away from home. So I could always drop in when I wanted home cooked meals, when I needed to do laundry. But also, I was able to expose my sisters to what college life was like. And so um, it was definitely a shared experience with them. And I would bring them into the dorms. So lucky that I lived with my best friend because she tolerated this. Yeah, they would have slumber parties in the dorms and they thought it was the best
Oh my
because
god. I
my
mean,
parents would
come
never let us
on.
go anywhere. They were very protective. And I think that's also part of the traditional Mexican family upbringing. Like, you don't stay the night at other people's homes. And so the fact that they could do that with me was just,
Like,
it was just the most exciting thing. They looked forward to it. And so from there, I am also the first person to navigate like this um, more of like white collar work. And so I thankfully, thankfully I was able to, through the years of experience with behavior therapy, through my years of experience with managing at a tutoring center, I was able to finally get my job as a social worker, which is what I always wanted. I always wanted
exactly.
to be of service. Like, I wanted to give back, and I thought this was the way to do
I
that.
think that's just so, so beautiful. That was exactly one of my next questions, literally, because I
Mm,
remember when I was reading your story, sorry, and the one that's posted on the blog today, um, how you said before about diplomas that you were the first person in your family to ever to graduate as well, and you
mhm,
had that sense of pride and happiness and like that can-do attitude that not only because you're from California, Mexican heritage women, but you're like, I'm gonna do this is my kind of happiness, I'm gonna do this for myself, and I love that.
mhm. Thank you. Yeah.
um so you got your dream job, like you were saying, which is helping others as a social worker.
Mhm,
And you even brought, yeah, you even bought, there you go. You even bought a house for yourself.
yeah,
So
yeah, that was
how was that
huge.
process and how did that make you feel?
So I experienced my first and my only, thankfully, panic attack the day that I signed the day that I signed the deal for the house. Um, it was just a lot of change, but it was welcome change. It was a having owned a home um, is is something that so many people aspire to, and like I think it's incredible that I was able to do that. And I also did that very close to home. So I had my mom and dad close by where I could go to their home, like their house for dinner. My dad insisted on helping me with my lawn, um, little things like that. So it was a good experience in that sense, but it was a lot of responsibility. And while I'm very proud of that, while I'm very proud of getting that, in San Bernardino, when you have a job with the county, with the school district, with what are some of the other big employers? Amazon now. But when you have a
Yeah,
job like with one of these big employers, to a lot of people, and by a lot of different measures, you've made it. And so I I guess at that point, I've technically, by a lot of people's standards, I've made it, and really proud of that. But at the same time, I think that's what brought up some of um, this discomfort when I wasn't so happy with it all.
exactly. Because with this, your story continues, obviously. And even though you did feel very successful, I think that's where I'm going to. Like, you're like, I made it because my family hasn't done this. And so I'm the first one to do it. Like, look at me go. And you have that kind of added pressure. You're also, like you said, the oldest, which is the best thing ever. But, you have that sort of responsibility since the day your younger sister is born. You have like an
I
added,
was one.
oh, there.
So, but yeah, basically my whole
So your whole life. It's like I was 5 and I had 5 years to myself. No, it was 1, okay?
life.
Good. It's one after the other, I'm assuming at this point, right? There's 5 of you. Goodness. Um, so you were talking about, once again, through the blog post, and that's where I was,
Mhm,
breach it out here, guilt for being successful. And it's something
mhm.
that we do deal with every day as women that we are, as Latin women that we are, without a doubt. And it's something that we don't talk about as much. So I want your take on that, please.
Yeah. So at that time, there, it, it took me a long time to recognize that, to own, and to share that I wasn't happy, that something was off, because I felt like, how dare I feel this way? How dare I even like give into this feeling? My dad works 6, 7 days a week. My mom works 5 full time, always often worked a second job after her first job, and still managed to like, you know, by, by many people's accounts, by her own as well. Like, she ran the household. My dad was very much involved. Love him, but he did travel a lot more for work. In that he had to leave at 4 in the morning, wasn't home till like 7 at night, because he would travel. His commute time was about 2 hours, 1 hour most days, depending on what contract they had, since he's a construction worker. And so, my mom, my dad, like, they both are superhumans. And so, and they work really hard, to give me the opportunities that I have. And so, yeah, there was a lot of guilt associated uh, with being unhappy with what I had. And I, I think that, it took a long time, too long, to really just accept that and own it, and just, you know and just to give myself some pause, to give myself a moment to just say, hey, it's okay, right? And I yeah so that's so it's definitely definitely an experience. And I would like more people to share more of their stories with this, because I think that you feel very lonely when you're going through it. And I think that is really, it's one, you're being unfair to yourself. And the second part of not sharing it with others just continues to make you feel more lonely about it. Um,
Exactly.
so
This
it
is why
was,
when you were
it's
telling
tough.
me your story, exactly, that I want to use this platform, not only to share your kind of story, share all kinds of stories to make sure people that, we're not alone in this. Like, we're literally together. Like, you could be
Hmm.
someone that, like in my case, I don't know you personally, but we might share a whole bunch of things in common. And just because we speak about it and we spoke up, better said, that's where our connection lies, to be brave enough to be like, oh, I'm going through this, or I have gone through this, and then
Hmm.
little by little kind of form that community and that alliance, because like you said,
Yeah.
we're not alone in this. And I totally see where you're coming from, because I had some sort of similar pattern a few years ago already, as what quote unquote being successful looked like. And it was that kind of it was kind of a typical thing set in stone. And it was like, oh, like I had a perfect job, and I had quote unquote the perfect boyfriend at that time, and I had like a lot of like I was really comfortable, let's put it that way. But was I
Hmm.
happy? No, that was one of the most darkest moments in my life with myself, and I wasn't happy. I didn't know who I was. I was like going to the job because, just for the heck of it, because it was paying the bills. And I'm like, oh, this is what my life, after everything that I've gone through, you're like, oh goodness.
Yeah.
So I totally see your point, of course, and I'm sure that there's many people who are listening to us right now, are like, oh, wait a second, I get that, like I was I did the quote unquote happy thing that everyone wanted me to do. Like, I have to
Hmm.
break out of it to make sure I find my own happiness, because it's the most important thing, without a doubt. Um, so your fiance, now your
Hmm.
husband,
Hmm.
is a huge pillar for you. He was a little bit in trouble 2 seconds ago with the beep beep, but he's a huge pillar for you. He's one of your, rocks in your life, and that's something to be super grateful for. I married my best friend, and I understand completely. Um, so you mentioned him as well because you had a certain day in the car, and I want you to, tell us a little bit about it, please.
Yeah, so that's actually the one of the days where I first realized, or I first had to come to like terms with and own the fact that my unhappiness was something that couldn't be avoided anymore. It wasn't something that I could pretend wasn't there and just try to function, um, because I was driving home from work and just like any other typical day, and like so many other days, I pulled up in front of our place and I just cried. And sometimes I just needed that outlet to just release from the day. I was a social worker, and so aside from the caseload, the work, me wanting to be productive, me wanting to like hit our targets, me wanting to help people, and um, and do it well, do it effectively, do it efficiently. Aside from all of that, I also was visiting people in their homes and talking to them throughout the day, and they were sharing their stories with me, and it's a lot.
It
It's a
is.
lot to carry.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
and so sometimes I or especially during that time, um, I just stop and cry, and and uh, and I now recognize that that's not how most people's day should go. Um, so he
Say it in such a cute way. It's adorable.
yeah, because that was my normal then. And so he so he saw me from the window and confronted me and just by saying like, "Hey, are you okay?" He sent me a text and said, "Hey, are you okay?" But was smart enough to give me my space to like deal with this before I came in. And the fact that he recognized that, the fact that he saw it, that's what made me realize, okay, this is a problem, and I need to do something about it, and because I can't go in um, and bring this weight in with me, especially when I have someone who's so positive, such a like just such a strong support in my life. Like I can't let this, what I'm bringing home with me, affect that or affect me, continue to affect me as well. And so that was definitely a moment where I realized, okay, I need to do something about this. I need to shift. And so the planner that I am, I think that night I started researching like what I can do, how I can maximize some of my strengths, still be of service to others, but do it in a different way. Do it in a way where I'm also happy. And so, so I think that anytime I think back to that day, I feel like that was a really like pivotal time of like having to just recognize that, hey, this isn't okay. And I need to talk. And also, it was the first time that I talked to anyone about it because um, I often, um, one of my skills is that I'm very good at not, not sharing when I'm stressed or not making
Mm.
it obvious when I'm down, when I'm upset. I'm that optimistic person. I'm a positive spinner. And so for once, that day in particular, I had to let that go, and I had to be more vulnerable. And since then, a lot of good has come from that.
That is a beautiful story. That's a pivotal moment for you, and I totally understand you when it comes to being positive. Because if you know me, you know that the word positive just pops up automatically. And much like we were saying before with quote unquote that perfect life, you're always so happy and positive, like, oh, it's okay, I'll continue. Because we also are hard workers. We go
Mhm.
after what we want, and that's kind of how we were raised. I mean, I'm the opposite of you. I'm the youngest, but there's only two of us. My brother's 10 years older than me. I mean, I grew up a lot by myself. moved, since the age of 9, basically. With my mom, yes, but it was here, there, and over the place in 3 different countries. So, kind of long story short, it's that power, it's that drive, and you're like, "Oh, it's okay." So once you reach a certain point of, like, what happiness is supposed to look like, you're like, "Oh, wait, this isn't it." And I'm happy that you embrace that as well, because feeling all your feelings is absolutely okay. You need to get
Yeah,
angry,
you
you
have
feel
to.
sad, you have to, like, release that guilt, and, like, even just because, um we may look happy, we have to acknowledge and own up to our own feelings in order to, continue and grow, obviously.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
that was one of your biggest drives to make a huge change in your life, of course.
Mhm.
Um, how did that happen from going from your forever home, basically, from having your
Yeah.
parents 15 minutes away, to literally going from the West Coast to the East Coast?
Mhm.
What drove you there, sorry, how did you end up in New York? Tell us, my love.
Mhm. So one of those, when I think back to like buying the house, for example, which by the way, realty, um, homes are pretty inexpensive in San Bernardino. So that did help me. That did benefit me at that time. That's how I was able to do it. But having done that, is actually partly what enabled me to come to New York because by um, by it just things just seemed to work like they were like it was fated or something. In that the same year that I finally gave in to selling my home, was the same year that my husband's company was now in a position where they could have him work out of the New York office, and would actually prefer that. Like that was, it was going to help, it was going to benefit his company as well. And I also, because of that, partly because of that pivotal day, that pivotal moment, that experience that I'd had, um, what came of that research was I started to complete my master's in industrial and organizational psychology. And so all of that combined made it so that I was able to like sell my home, and quit my job, but I still had my school to complete, which at the time was done online, which actually worked out really well because I could move with me. And we moved out to, oh, and also on top of that, we moved into an apartment owned by friends or one of his colleagues, who were now moving to the West Coast. And so it just made everything just so much easier than it would have been otherwise. Not that it was easy by any means, but it made it easier. And it seemed like things just fell into place. Um, and so that's what brought us to the East Coast. I was able to finish my master's program and I thought, what better place to start over, to start a new career, in human resources, people operations, learning and development than New York City. Because if, um, if anyone knows anything about San Bernardino, you don't have a lot of these specialized jobs there. And so the fact that I could start over here, I thought, what an incredible opportunity. And so, started with an internship, moved into a coordinator, contractor role, coordinator, specialist. And now, a few years later, I'm a manager in learning and development at a tech company, which I feel like it's all come full circle because we connect health and social care. So we provide, um, for people just like me, just like the social worker that I used to be, the work that I used to do. We provide for them. And so I'm really happy that I'm in the position now where I continue to give back, but in a different way, using um, a new skill set. And it's actually one that, uh, I didn't recognize it at the time, but it's one that just really suits me.
And once again, when you were talking about your mom and dad, you had a smile from ear to ear talking about this. I can see you. You have a humongous smile.
Oh
So
yeah.
you can definitely tell it's like something that you're very passionate about and that you're in love with what you do. And it's a humongous piece of inspiration, basically, because you
Hmm.
decided at that moment that this is the moment where I get out of my own way. Like, I'm going to stand up for myself. Like, I'm going to figure out what I need to do to be me and to be happy, of course, and find my happiness. And isn't it incredible and wonderful and magic just all rolled in together that when you decide to take that moment for yourself, no matter how big or small it may look like at that moment, everything else just lines up?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
literally, everything you kept telling us, like, oh, it's my house, it got sold, and like my husband's friends, they were moving to the West Coast, we got that apartment. You're like, dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Everything lined up. It was definitely like meant to be on some level, and I like that you described it as me getting out of my own way, because that's really essentially what it is. I opened myself up to opportunities by taking some risks, some calculated risks. I did a lot of research, but taking risks by by learning more about what I didn't know anything about, and by just taking action. I think that taking action and daring to dream a little bit, right? Because that never in 2000, what year was that when that happened? I think it was 2013. Never in my 2013 wildest dreams did I think that I'd be right here, right now, sharing that experience.
I believe you. I definitely believe you because I've been on that boat many times. Of it's I just I love that. I love that reminder for people, get out of your own way. Just listen to yourself and listen to your body and listen to what really is important to you. And
Mhm.
you might be living not only in the other side of the country, but you might be living completely the other side of the world. It doesn't, like, you don't
Mhm.
know, and all the wonderful possibilities that come your way because of it. The moment, of course, once again, that you get out of your own way. How has your life changed since then? Because it's been, up to today's date, it's about 7 years.
Yeah.
So
Um,
how's your life changed?
it's changed a lot. Well, one thing is that so I'm, uh, aside from being really happy with the work that I'm doing, I'm married now, to that, strong support of a boyfriend at the time. Um, uh, and we live in Brooklyn with, which is really close to work too. We both work in financial district type Tribeca. So something that was really important to us, we said this, even when I was a social worker, I actually wrote it down as a goal or aspiration. I don't know. I have a note and I've saved it and I've kept it for years because it was what some of my goals and wishes were when I made this change. And one of the goals or wishes on that list was to have a short commute to work. And and because that, I was just tired of it. Then I was driving a lot. It seemed like part of my day went to driving, and I
Mm.
wasn't able to be as productive as I wanted when I had a lot of driving to do between clients' homes, or um, even when I had a long commute home and back. Like, it just was too much. And so, with all that being said, we have about 10-15 minute commute to and from work, and have love our apartment. Like, we have the luxury of having a washer and dryer in our unit, which is huge. My husband loves the view from here. We are right next to the Brooklyn Bridge. So yeah, it's crazy. It's such a change.
It's a
Um,
humongous change, but it's a heck of a beautiful one, that's for sure.
yeah.
I love how you like manifested that some way somehow. I'm a huge believer in manifestation, and like when
Mhm.
you write things down and you know something in your mind, not only do we know we're go getters, so of course we're gonna go get it, but not only that, it's just kind of that spark of saying, I want a short commute or I want to live in a certain area, and just it
Mhm.
happens throughout the years some way somehow. And I just feel like that the fact that you kept that note and you're like, hey, this is what I wanted.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Actually, the first neighborhood that we moved into after leaving that first apartment was a neighborhood that I really wanted to move into. Um, and we had gone, because we played with the idea before moving to New York, before we actually took action on it. And I loved the architecture and the uh, like the charm of this neighborhood called Brooklyn Heights here in Brooklyn. It's on the waterfront. It's a historic district, so the homes are gorgeous. And there was this one street called Love Lane, and
Oh.
it just the charm was just like ridiculous, right? And so this was back in 2013 when we were playing with the idea before we actually took action, or we just didn't know how, because we looked at rent prices, we looked at like all this and that, and it just seemed intense. Oh, okay. Sorry, my phone did something. But
It's all
so
good.
it just all seemed like it was just so far away, right? And we ended up moving to Brooklyn Heights. That was our first apartment out, after having moved to our first landing spot at our friend's place. And so Brooklyn Heights became our home for a few years. And then we moved over to Dumbo because we really needed a washer and dryer unit. But yeah, so that's like
Oh, the
that
life of New
actually
York.
reminded me, that was another manifestation, because I like marked it on the map. I saved a few places. I think they were selling for millions of dollars, but I saved them. I thought about them, and we were able to, rent at least in that
Exactly.
area.
Oh, I just love it. I love it. I love your spark and your energy, and I adore, finding stories like yours to, tell our, community, of course, to share with our community. There we go.
Mhm.
Um, because, they're pivotal, they're inspirational, and they're achievable. Like, just, the moment that, once again, release and you take the opportunity to continue with your life and saying, like, know your value and your worth, magical
Mhm.
things start to happen. And I feel like that's super important, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
agree.
so what has been like your follow-up steps to continue releasing since that pivotal day?
Uh, so it's always learning. Always, like I am always learning, which doesn't mean that you have to strive for a certain level of productivity necessarily, but always learning is important. So anytime I have the energy, anytime I'm in a good place to be able to learn something new, I'm out there. Like, I just actually completed the library has free lynda.com courses. So I was just doing some of those this weekend. So I think part of that is like always learning, always being open to learning, even if it's like discussion over the dinner table with friends, like just always having this growth mindset, I think is huge. Um, but then one thing that I'm always learning to be better at is also giving myself grace and like, um, and accepting when I can't be as productive as other times, and just living in it and not feeling guilty for it, because that's definitely, I would say, one of my ongoing struggles is always wanting to be productive and always wanting to do so much, but it's a trap if you set certain like expectations up for yourself and then you're unable to meet them because you're human. um, you have to let some of it go. And so I would say that realizing that that's a struggle and owning it and not letting that hold me back, because it can be counterintuitive, um, has been like, that's huge. And I think that would be
Pillars
something
for
that
you.
if I could go back and tell myself something sooner, that would be it. If I could share that with anyone else who is also has like this growth mindset and always wanting to learn, that's something I'd share too.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my next questions was that one actually. What word of advice would you give, our
Oh,
listeners? And it's definitely that one, obviously. And I completely agree with you when it comes, well, obviously everything, first of all, to grow, to learn. I feel like learning. I also, I give out courses here at the Always Believer and whatnot, and I always tell my audience, no matter who it is, my clients, listeners, whatever, I'm just like, I take more courses than I give, but because I'm always constantly learning. And a
Mhm.
course can also be something as quote unquote simple as like a meditation course or
Mhm.
anything, like I listen to a lot of podcasts or like read a lot of
Right.
articles, that constant growth to know that, in order to move forward and to align with oneself, that's super important.
Mhm.
And also the whole productive thing, without a doubt. I am full on Aries, if that means anything to anybody listening. But I want things done yesterday, basically. Not for
Mhm.
everybody else, but for me, myself, and I. And when I'm
Yeah.
running my own business, because I am, and I'm doing the podcast, I'm doing the courses, I'm talking to people, clients, I'm doing this and doing that. And it's like, learn to slow down, first of all. And second of all, that it's okay not to be as productive as one thing, quote unquote, should be, without a
Yeah.
doubt. Because I feel like
Yeah.
something's so important, because we are humans. We forget we're humans. I feel like sometimes people, like, even if you aren't in areas, obviously, just in general, you're like, no, but I can do this, I can do that.
Yeah.
And like, go, 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 go. And you're like, no, calm down. You're human.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
rest. Rest is important.
There's some work I really like to share when I'm doing anything, when I'm like, because I do courses at work as in my role in learning and development, and anytime productivity comes up, I like this one piece around managing your energy as well as managing your time, because it's not just managing your time, it's also like managing your energy. And that even though you have 10 hours or 12 hours that you can work straight, doesn't mean that your body is designed to do that. So
And
something
everybody,
important to keep in mind.
literally everybody, and every mind, body, and soul is different.
Hmm.
So whereas you have people who can do 10 hours, but maybe they can do 10 hours 3 days, and then the rest of the days are like, nope, and I have other
Yeah.
people who can do, oh, I can do 4 or 5 really productive hours, but then I'm gonna, take 5.
Right, right.
And
It's just
finding
figuring out
that
what works for you.
balance. Exactly. I
Hmm.
know it's a lot of times complicated. You also work, quote unquote, the 9 to 5 job, of course, and it's structured differently.
Hmm.
However, I'm assuming within that, because you already have so much knowledge, you're using it to your advantage, you're like, oh, I know that my energy is higher, I don't know, at 10 in the morning, at 12 o'clock, and at 3 p.m. And I want to do whatever I can to make those times the best for me,
Right, right. Yeah,
knowing who you are and how your mind and brain works in the best kind of time, because the energy is so important, so important.
yeah.
Like, I don't know
Yeah,
about you, but like, I'm a morning person. Like right now, like, because we're recording, well, our audience doesn't really know when we're recording, but right now, what the time is, it's 8:41 p.m. currently. And for me, everything that I do more productive is like in the morning. So
hmm,
I can feel it in general. Like, podcasts are a little bit different, of course. It's a conversation at the end of the day. But when it comes to like me being productive, I can wake up at 5 in the morning. I can wake up at 6 in the morning and be working by 7 or by 6:30, whatever, and be like, let's do this.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
That's
knowing
actually how
yourself.
I work the same way. That's actually how I did grad school, because I went to grad school while I was working full time,
Oh
and they
my
were
God, preach, me too.
10-hour days, or what
Yeah.
was it? I don't remember, but they were basically longer days so that I would have a Friday off. And so, a Friday off every couple weeks. So I don't remember how long the days were, but they were longer. And I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning to do my schoolwork, because that's something that I had to learn the hard way. Was even though I have time when I get home from work, because I get home, 5:30, 6 o'clock, um, my energy, I just can't focus. I can't process the information the same way as I
I
do if I were to
agree.
just wake up early and get it done. So,
I agree. I'm one of those people who, like, I'd rather go to bed at 10. And when
yeah.
I was working full time, I was working 2 or 3 jobs, making my way through college as well. And I my earliest job was like an hour before school. I remember that, like, from 7 to 8 or something, and I would go into school like at 8:30 or something. But because it's like a random hour that you have like morning stuff, like, give out newspapers and like giving the kids, like taking some kids to school, kind of whatever I could find to make ends meet, kind of deal. And I was like you, wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm like, this is my time to study. Like, I'm not gonna stay up till midnight, wake up at 6 and do it. I'd rather go to bed
Mhm.
at 10 or at 10:30 tops, depending on what time I, got off work and whatnot, and wake up early. So yeah. So definitely it's that, like, knowing time is important, of course. Like, time management, like you said, is important, but energy management is so important. And I hope, and I manifesting this, and I'm telling the universe that hopefully there's a big shift happening of like saying, yo, energy is important and we can all be more productive in our particular ways as long as we know
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Oh, I love this. I love talking to you. Oh, it's so nice.
Thank you. I like talking to you as well.
Thank you. So what do you do for yourself every day?
Uh, I'm always working on that. But the small thing like drinking water throughout the day, I think that that it's not just the way I'm being replenished by the actual water itself, but it's also building in short breaks throughout the day, right? To give myself a chance to come up for air from like the work that I'm doing. So if I'm working on really focused work, I need that break to get me up to go do something, to stretch. And then other times I'm meeting throughout the day. So it gives me an opportunity to just take a breather and um, get water. So I think that would be one way that I have consistently been really good to myself. Um, and it's funny because you always think like you hear the word self-care um, or looking out for yourself is often people feel like this needs for it to be something much bigger than that, but it can be the small act of just getting up for water. Also trying to work in like daily yoga, but I haven't been so consistent with that. So we'll see where this goes. My goal.
There you go. Manifest it. I agree with you. Like once again, of course, so easy to agree with that statement of because I ask this question quite often in every single interview, but with yours it fits so perfectly. It fits with everybody, but I was like, I gotta ask her this precise question because I get all sorts of different answers. And for some people it's like, oh, washing my face every day. And they're like, I know it
Oh.
sounds weird, but waking up and like washing my face and having those 5 minutes to like put my lotion on or whatever just really makes me happy, and I'm doing that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a huge supporter, believer, voice maker, whatever word you want to say here, to make sure that everyone knows it's the small little things. It doesn't have to be a spa day. It doesn't have to be
Mm-hmm.
going to the hairdressers or getting a massage. Yeah, those things are self-care, of course. But are we going to do them daily? No. As far as I'm concerned, I feel like in general, no. So it goes from, for me, I love painting my nails, for example. And not that I paint my nails every
Okay.
day, obviously, but I was like taking that time to paint them. I'm like, oh, this is also something quote unquote simple, but it's also self care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daily, I agree with you with the water. I'm super consistent with my water. And I love that you said that as well, because A, that's the first time I ever hear it. And B, because I do it all the time as well. I always have it like near me. So like, when I'm doing stuff. But what I love about the moments I have to fill again my water bottle, I do it in a way that's every like, I don't know, 3 hours, 2 hours. I don't know. I have like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole thing. What does that mean? Like you said, I have to take it up, I have to fill it in. I go all, because I work from home, so I go all the way to the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
get it, look outside, take deep breaths, come back in. So
Mm-hmm.
every little small thing counts. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And I
great.
cheer you on for yoga. Keep doing yoga, and then even though it's not every day, do it 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Start small.
Yeah.
And because we have 10-minute yoga special as well, like for 10 minutes. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's sometimes that's what I do. Like I don't have enough time for an hour, but you're like, all right, I can do 10 minutes. It's a
Yeah.
nice break.
Yeah.
Alrighty then.
Absolutely.
So we're almost basically done, sadly and truly, because we've been talking to you for a while. So we're definitely at the last questions that I always ask everyone. What are 3 words to describe you?
3 words. um, I would say resourceful is one. Um, Reliable. It's really important for me to be reliable, and um, like empathetic.
Oh, that's very sweet as well. I would see you like that. being a social worker and always caring for people and wanting their best and have like their best in mind.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I care about people. I love people.
Same, same. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. That's what my husband always tells me, is like, you wouldn't be doing a podcast courses, you wouldn't be in the public if you didn't
Hmm.
care for people. And I think that's super important as well.
Yeah.
Ramona, what are you thankful for?
Um, there's so much to be thankful for. I I guess one of the items would be just um, so today is I think today is a day to celebrate Selena, the singer. And that actually brings up something that I'm grateful for, in that I'm grateful to have had the upbringing that I had.
Oh,
It was by no means did we have, I feel like we just always learned to work with what we had, and family and community were everything. And I'm just so grateful for that. And today was a reminder of that, with, with it being a day to celebrate Selena. It's just
that is
huge.
that is that's special right there. Um, I mean, I have to do a whole segment of Selena itself, because a lot of people who don't know, a lot of our audience is Latin American, so they're like, we know who Selena is. I mean, come on. But yeah, she was extraordinary, of course. And I love
Yeah.
that, something like that actually reminded you of the positive side. And I feel like, as Latin American that we are, either if we weren't born there or not, you're still Latin
Hmm.
American. Um, we are resilient, we are strong, we are resourceful, like you said, and we
Hmm.
do take that. And I feel like that's a blessing at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm
That's
so
just
grateful.
so
I
grateful.
never
And
had the newest clothes or the newest anything like that. Or I actually didn't go to the movie theater until I was a teenager. But I'm so grateful for, I'm not, but, and I am so grateful for that.
oh my
Um,
god, you're one of me. I can't speak. I told you, I'm not, my language at this time of night, it's like, what are you talking about? No.
well, thank you for meeting with me now.
No worries. Because it came out in Spanish. I was thinking about the sentence in Spanish, and then I'm like, I try to translate it, and I never translate it. But sometimes it's kind of automatic when you're
Yeah.
bilingual, and I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense in English. Hold on. What
Hmm.
I was trying to say with I do the same. You said but, and then you changed the word but to like no and, because
Hmm.
but's a negative word, and
Hmm.
we use it all the time, and I've had that for years. So I still
Yeah.
catch myself from here and there. So the fact that it's always me catching myself, it's always me telling other people, my friends, obviously not like strangers here, but like other my friends, like, hey, don't say but, say and, whatever. So
Hmm.
when I heard you say that, I was like, oh wait, it's like me, I do the same. I love it. um, so I guess definite for last, 'cause there's many of other questions I have in mind right now. You're definitely more than welcome to come back anytime. It's such a pleasure talking to you. I wanted you to tell you to see, I can't speak anymore. This is like my brain's like, oh, I'm so excited. It's like excitement and happiness, and just when you find these kind of connections, I get flustered because I'm like, it's so nice. I get like awkward. That's just me. Anyways, thankfully here Team Flyer understands and knows me from a while, so they got my back. What I was trying to say, sorry, Ramona, was that part that you're always welcome here anytime. Where can you tell our audience, where can we reach you, please?
So I actually do, from my experience, I've been, I've been taking my experience and building my website with that. So you can find me at www.ramonarobles.com. And I am working through sharing more articles as it relate to professional development, personal development, leadership development, and and then one thing in particular that comes up a lot, which wasn't a specialty that I was looking for, but was like around resume help or interviewing skills. And so, yeah, you can find me there. Ramona at ramonarobles.com is my email address. And then I'm happy to help.
Yay! I'll definitely link it down below, as always, through our podcast and our social media, of course. So we definitely have a way to find you. But yeah, definitely Ramona Robles. I love everything you do. Thank you for being such a spark in this life that we need, in this planet Earth that we need so much of your joy and happiness, and people who, really go after what they want and take advantage of overcoming those struggles and helping others after
Right.
overcoming those struggles. So thank you. Thank you very much for being with us today. I
Oh,
would love to
thank
have you
you.
on anytime, like I said, and thank you for enjoying my craziness and putting up with me as well.
That's it was not putting up with you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the
Just,
opportunity.
oh, my words, I stumble. So, as for the rest of all of us over here at, The Always Believer, we have new episodes of podcast, of course, in Spanish and English every single Wednesday. We have our courses already out. We have tons of different things that you can find, of course, at thealwaysbeliever.com and all social media. So come on by, say hello, and definitely say hello to Ramona from our behalf, saying, hey, I heard you're the Always Believer. I want to know more. All right. So thank you for being here, Ramona. Thank you.
Thank you.